Hi, I'm Dr. Ben Lerner. Welcome to the Max Life Show. Today's topic is sugar. We all love it, tastes great, but obviously people are realizing it's not so good for you. We just did an article on sugar and cancer, put it on Facebook, had over 10,000 people read this article, nearly 100% of everyone I know online. So bottom line is it does cause disease, but most people are concerned that it can make you fat. Now, I've been doing a lot of research on why people gain weight, why they can't lose it over the last couple of decades. And I became really concerned about 15 years ago when more and more of my people would come in and they were another 50, 100 pounds heavier than the people I was evaluating nutritionally, say, 10 years before that. I remember the first lady walking in and saying, when I look at the mirror now, I can actually see my butt when I'm looking at the front. And the point being that you didn't see these sort of hormonal, genetically changed weird things happen to people's bodies. Like you just see people with really, really big legs or really, really big butts or putting on enormous guts that are not really connected to the calories. So calories haven't gone up that dramatically, yet we're seeing radical changes in people's bodies. A lot of my people came in, especially the women, and said, I've become this pear shape and I can't get rid of it. And the bottom line is, you won't be able to do it with some sort of weird fad diet. I've seen so many diets over almost 3 decades of being in nutrition and fitness. I remember one was the prune diet. That was one of the early diets. Now, people didn't lose weight, but you knew where they were. I remember one called the wine diet. You drank so many glasses of wine per day, you lost 10 pounds and your driver's license. Again, not a great diet. Around here, big hospital town here in Celebration where we're shooting, and you see all kinds of big billboards for things like lap band surgery or gastric bypass. We also live near Disney, and Disney has all these happy families frolicking throughout the parks. And they literally do these lap band and gastric bypass billboards as if it's kind of like a Disney billboard. And this is a dangerous surgery. We're not talking about riding Space Mountain. So we've got to look for better ways, the only ways that really work to lose weight, get the shape back you want, and stop this massive change in our body types that's happening. And it really comes down, first and foremost, to the sugar. Now, before we get started on the actual topic, I do want to hit our News You Can Use segment this week. And this is based on marriage. We don't really hear a lot of positive things about marriage. Very often you will hear about huge divorce rates. We hear about unhappy men or watch them in movies that they lost their ability to go out and party with their friends or something. We hear about all the deadbeat husbands and deadbeat dads out there. That's mostly what we see in the news when it comes to marriage. Well, here is a positive thing. There was a study done, it was on 127,545 American adults, and they found that married men actually live longer. They have less disease, they're healthier, they're in better shape. And of course, if you look at what the reasons were, married men don't go out as often, they don't eat as much sugar, they eat healthier, they tended to get more activity. So the bottom line is, if you want to live a long, painful, slow death, then you get married. So at any rate, let's talk about sugar. First of all, you almost have to wonder, why is so much of it out there? How did this toxic substance that makes us fat, causes cancer and other diseases, how did so much of it get in our foods? And there was another article that came out recently that talked about this connection, this insidious connection between big sugar and science. And it turns out, according to this British Medical Journal article, it was a 4-part series, that talked about the fact that big sugar, the sugar companies and the companies like Coca-Cola and Hershey and companies like that actually give money to researchers to do research as to whether or not sugar actually causes problems. So of course, this is very similar to 2 sides in a courtroom, and that one side is giving the judge money and the other side isn't, and expecting impartial results. And that's the point the British Medical Journal article made. And we learned that not only is there sugar like we see it, that whether it's in the form of corn syrup or whether it's the form of cane or whether it's the form of just the white powdery stuff we've come to know and love, that it's not just there where it's obvious, but they've allowed tons of sugar to go into our additives and preservatives. So it's not just when we're eating sugar and sweet things, but when we eat anything artificial, anything packaged, things that are in a can and there are preservatives, these are sugar-based preservatives. And as a result of those going into your system, they make the food indigestible, and too much sugar always gets stored as fat. It gets stored as bad cholesterol, and there really are a number of things that can happen. We're aware of the fact that it makes us fat. We're aware of the fact that it isn't good for us and it's bad for our teeth, but we're maybe missing some of these other more negative effects even than that. So as we mentioned, we had an article on how sugar feeds cancer, and it blew up online. People realized, wow, that's a big problem. Sugar, when it gets absorbed by the body, actually, when there's too much of it, it gets stored as very low density lipoproteins, or the really bad kind of cholesterol that really clogs the arteries, causes inflammation and a lot of danger. Sugar leads to inflammatory conditions, and something else people don't know about sugar is it makes you age. It's literally causes something called AGEs, advanced glycation end products, and these things damage the collagen in your skin and cause wrinkles, and does similar things to the organs of your body, just makes them stiff, less healthy, and older. So there's just a lot of reasons not to eat sugar, including what it does to your weight. Now, one of the things you have to realize is it's not just when it says sugar on the label. So there's things like ketchup, for example. I remember that was one of the first things they pointed out. If you read it, there's sugar in there. A lot of things like peanut butter, jelly, a lot of your basic things that you thought, well, that fruit is in jelly. I thought that's just strawberry fruit. Well, read it, there's sugar. Well, I thought it was just peanuts in the peanut butter. Read it, there's sugar. And again, if these are the processed bad kinds of foods, there's also sugar in the preservatives. So there's a lot hidden. The other thing is it might say things like barley malt, or it might say corn syrup, or dextrose, or fruit juice, or fructose, cane sugar. These things are all sugar also, turbinado. These are just different terms for sugar. Then there's the natural sugar. So there's honey, there's maple syrup, there's molasses. Now, while those are, when found in a natural state, they do have some benefits, and your body's at least better able to process it, but still at a certain amount of sugar hitting the system, you can't process it, so it still, as far as the body's concerned, still gets stored as fat, still converts to inflammation, bad cholesterol, and as we mentioned, ages, and that's just the beginning. It also makes you fat. One of the reasons we can see that people, again, get just really misshapen bodies more than we had in the past is the impact on hormones. That insulin is a hormone, and there's other hormones like ghrelin. There's things like testosterone, estrogen, all which can be influenced by sugar. So bottom line, sugar not good. Now, one of the things we've tried to do is we've tried to use things like the blue packs or the yellow packs or the pink packs. But those things are toxic, and toxins can have just as much of a negative impact on your weight, on your hormones, your body's ability to process food, and many studies show that these products lead to disease. Now, on the other hand, I don't want to get into all the science because it just should make sense to you. Most of what we're talking about today is the fact that as you put chemicals or foreign substances into the body, regardless of what those companies tell you, knowing also that there's a lot of conflict of interest when the studies come out, just stay away from putting these bad things in your body, particularly when it's artificial sugars and sweeteners. I love what Jack LaLanne said. I go back to that on a lot of our shows and in a lot of our information. If God didn't make it, I won't eat it. And here's a guy that was ripped and still pulling tugboats with his teeth when he was in his 90s. He lived to like 300, so I'd like to listen to him. Better versions of sweeteners are things like stevia. Now, some people would say, well, maybe we should just cut out sweet things altogether. That may not work for all of us. I know it doesn't work for me. But I'm able to eat a lot of desserts, a lot of the things that you think you have to give up when you give up sugar, but you could sweeten them with stevia. Xylitol is another sort of alternative to sugar that we recommend in some of our recipes. Now, any of the alls mean there are these alcohol derivatives that don't impact your blood sugar levels, and so you don't run into a lot of the downstream effects you get with sugar, but they can upset your stomach. They're not entirely natural. So of the alls, the alcohol derivatives like maltitol and erythritol, xylitol seems to be best, with a focus again on using stevia whenever possible. Now, one of the things I want to finish up with, and it was my freak of the week for this particular week's time, is the idea of a diet that's low carb. When we talk about sugar, the bottom line is it's a concentrated carbohydrate. And we know that in general, carbs aren't great for the body. You really only need as many carbs as you're burning and no more. And really, many people don't burn a whole lot of carbs. If you're a triathlete or an endurance runner, if you're working out real intensively for more than an hour at a time, then there's a certain amount of carbs that need to be increased in the diet right after you've exercised. But on a consistent basis, you actually want to be living off of good fats, good proteins, and lots of vegetables. Now, that has not been the popular way of looking at health and nutrition over the last several decades, but finally science has caught up. And the reason it's my freak of the week is we've been teaching a no grain, low carb, no sugar way of eating for many years, and have had to fight upstream against the medical community, against many of the so-called experts that were out there, and even what the government taught as the right way to eat with the different types of pyramids and programs that have been put out there. Yet we've always known scientifically this was the way to go. So when you read Maximized Metabolics, when you read the Maximized Living Nutrition Plans, and you look at our advanced diet, you'll find it's always been living off of higher fats, living off of no grains, living off of things like stevia, and then quality proteins, fruits and vegetables. Doing that makes sense. Following the recipe plans, using the recipes that we give you, make it really easy to do, make it something that still tastes great, but doesn't cause disease. So recently, Tulane University put out a study that the government accepted as truth because it was a very well done study. And what they showed is that utilizing a low carb, high fat diet, I know it sounds crazy. How can you eat lots of fats and be getting healthier and thinner? But that's the way the body works. And this university found, and it's changed the way the government now looks at nutrition, it's changing the way science and medicine now looks at nutrition, that the people who ate high fat, the people that eliminated what are called generally the healthy carbs like whole grains, those people lost 7.7 pounds more on an average. That's a lot of weight to lose. 7.7 pounds more on an average than the people on the higher carb, all natural, whole grain type of diet that we're used to being taught. They also had, and this was the kicker, even though they're doing more fat, they actually had better cholesterol percentages. They all had about the same low density lipoproteins, the LDLs that are the bad cholesterol, but the HDLs in the people doing high fat spiked. Good cholesterol went through the roof for the people on the high fat diet. I know it sounds crazy, but that's physiology. The one thing they didn't check in the study that I guarantee you also happened is the VLDLs, the ones that come directly as a reason for sugar and carbs. I'm sure those plummeted, and those are really the more tiny, insidious types of cholesterol we have to look out for that show we're doing too many carbs. So bottom line is, you want to do the Maximized Living Advanced Plan. You want to be somebody who's living a life loaded up on fats, quality proteins, lots of vegetables. You're doing just a little bit of fruit. You're really focusing on berries in the morning, and it's an easy way to eat. You can make it taste great. All that fat really gives you an opportunity to be full and to create great recipes, and it'll change your life. So whatever your body shape is, you might think you're stuck right now with the weight you are, or the pear shape you have, or the fact that the people in your family really have blown up over the years, but it really is a result of sugar and the modern way of eating.